thevoicebeforethevoid.net.
Yeah.
The Weird Tiger by Hugh Clifford. Soul that is dead, ere life be sped, body that's body of beast, with brain of a man to dare and to plan, so I make ready my feast. With tooth and claw and grip of jaw I rip and tear and slay. With senses that hear the winds ere they stir, I roam to the dawn of day. Soul that must languish in endless anguish, thy life is a little spell, so take thy fill, ere the powers of ill shall drag thee, soul, to hell. The Song of the Loup-Garou. If you ask that excellent body of savants, the Society for Psychical Research, for an opinion on the subject, they will tell you that the belief in ghosts, magic, witchcraft, and the like, having existed in all ages, in every land, is in itself a fact sufficient to warrant a faith in these things, and to establish a strong probability of their reality. It is not for me, or such as I am, to question the opinion of these wise men of the West. But if ghosts and phantoms and witchcraft and hag writings are to be accepted on such grounds, I must be allowed to put in a plea for similar reasons in favor of the Loup-Garou, the Weird Tiger, and all their gruesome family. Wherever there are wild beasts to prey upon the sons of men, there is also found the belief that the worst and most rapacious of the man-eaters are themselves human beings, who have been driven to temporarily assume the form of an animal by the aid of the black art, in order to satisfy their overpowering lust for blood. This belief, which seeks to account for the extraordinary rapacity of an animal by tracing its origin to a human being, would seem to be based upon an extremely cynical appreciation of the bloodthirsty character of our race. The white man and the brown, the yellow and the black, independently, and without receiving the idea from one another, have all found the same explanation for the like phenomena, all apparently recognizing the truth of the Malay proverb that we are like unto the toman fish that always preys upon its own kind. This general opinion, which seems the more worthy of acceptance in that it is the reverse of flattering to the very races that have formed this curious estimate of their own unlovely character, might by the ignorant and vulgar be supposed to be the real basis of the belief of which I speak, were it not for that dictum of the Society for Psychical Research to which I have above referred. But bowing to this authority, we must accept the Loup-Garou and all its kith and kin as stern realities, and not attribute it, as we might perhaps have been inclined to do, to a deadly fear of wild beasts, coupled to a thorough knowledge of the unpleasant qualities of primitive human nature. Educated Europeans, who live in a land where even nature, when she can be seen for the houses, has had man's hallmark scarred deep into her face, are apt to think the age of superstition has gone to fill the lumber room of the past. Occasionally they are awakened from this belief by the torturing of a witch in a cabin by an Irish bog, but even an event so near home as that is powerless to altogether disabuse their minds of their preconceived opinion. The difficulty really is that they cannot get completely rid of the notion that the world is peopled by educated Europeans like themselves, and by a few other unimportant persons who do not matter. They know that, numerically, they are as but a drop in the ocean of mankind, but it is possible to know a thing very thoroughly, and to realize it not at all. Thus they come by their false opinion. For, in truth, the age of superstition lives as lustily today as when, in past years, witches blazed at Smithfield, or died with rending gulps and bursting lungs, lashed fast to an English ducking stool. In the remote portions of the Malay Peninsula we live in the Middle Ages, with all the appropriate accessories of the dark centuries. Magic and evil spirits, witchcraft and sorcery, spells and love potions, charms and incantations are, to the mind of the native, as real and as much a matter of everyday life as are the miracle of the growing rice, and the mysteries of the reproduction of species. This must not only be known, but realized, not only accepted as a theory, but acknowledged as a fact, if the native view of life is to be understood and appreciated. Tales of the marvelous and the supernatural excite interest and fear in a Malay audience, but they occasion no surprise. Malays know that strange things have happened in the past, and are daily occurring to them and to their fellows. Some are struck by lightning, while others go unscathed, and similarly some have strange experiences, which are not wholly of this world, while others live and die untouched by the supernatural. The two cases, to the Malay mind, are completely parallel, and though both furnish matter for discussion and excite fear and awe, neither are unheard of phenomena calculated to awaken wonder and surprise. Thus the existence of the Malayan Lupkaru to the native mind is a fact, and not a mere belief. The Malay knows that it is true. Evidence, if it be needed, may be had in plenty. The evidence, too, of sober-minded men, whose words, in a court of justice, would bring conviction to the mind of the most obstinate juryman, and be more than sufficient to hang the most innocent of prisoners. The Malays know well how Haji Abdallah, the native of the little state of Korinchi in Sumatra, was caught naked in a tiger trap, and thereafter purchased his liberty at the price of the buffaloes he had slain, while he marauded in the likeness of a beast. They know of the countless Korinchi men who have vomited feathers after feasting upon fowls, when for the nonce they had assumed the forms of tigers, and of those other men of the same race who have left their garments and their trading packs in thickets, whence presently a tiger has emerged. All these things the Malays know have happened, and are happening today, in the land in which they live. And with these plain evidences before their eyes, the empty assurances of the enlightened European that weir tigers do not, and never did, exist, excite derision, not unmingled with contempt. The Slim Valley lies across the hills which divide Pahang from Perak. It is peopled by Malays of various races, Rawas and Minangkabaus from Sumatra, men with high-sounding titles and vain boasts, wherewith to carry off their squalid, dirty poverty. Perak men from the fair Quinta Valley, prospecting for tin or trading skillfully. Fugitives from Pahang, long settled in the district, and the sweepings of Sumatra, Java, and the peninsula. It was in this place that I heard the following story of a weir tiger from Penggula Mat Saleh, who was, and perhaps is still, the headman of this miscellaneous crew. Into the Slim Valley, some years ago, there came a Korinchi trader named Haji Ali, and his two sons, Abdul Rahman and Abbas. They came, as is the manner of their people, laden with heavy packs of sarongs, the native skirts or waist-cloths, trudging in single file through the forests and through the villages, hawking their goods to the natives of the place, with much cunning haggling or hard bargaining. But though they came to trade, they stayed long after the contents of their packs had been disposed of, for Haji Ali took a fancy to the place. Therefore he presently purchased a compound, and with his two sons set to work upon planting coconuts and cultivating a rice swamp. They were quiet, well-behaved people. They were regular in their attendance at the mosque for the Friday congregational prayers, and as they were wealthy and prosperous, they found favor in the eyes of their poorer neighbors. Thus it happened that when Haji Ali let it be known that he desired to find a wife, there was a bustle in the villages among the parents with marriageable daughters, and, though he was a man well past middle life, Haji Ali found a wide range of choice offered to him. The girl he selected was Fatima, the daughter of poor parents, peasants living on their land in one of the neighboring villages. She was a comely maiden, plump and round, and light of color, with a merry face to cheer, and willing fingers wherewith to serve a husband. The wedding portion was paid, a feast proportionate to Haji Ali's wealth was held to celebrate the occasion, and the bride was carried off, after a decent interval, to her husband's home among the fruit groves and the palm trees. This was not the general custom of the land, For among Malays, the husband usually shares his father-in-law's house for a long period after his marriage. But Haji Ali had a fine new house of his own, brave with wattled walls stained cunningly in black and white, and with a luxuriant covering of thatch. Moreover, he had taken the daughter of a poor man to wife, and could dictate his own terms to her and to her parents. The girl went willingly enough, for she was exchanging poverty for wealth, a miserable hovel for a handsome home, and parents who knew exactly how to get out of her the last fraction of work of which she was capable, for a husband who seemed ever kind, generous, and indulgent. Nonetheless, 3 days later she was found beating on the door of her parents' house, at the hour when dawn was breaking, trembling in every limb, with her hair disordered, her garments drenched with dew from the brushwood through which she had forced her way, with her eyes wild with horror, and mad with a great fear. Her story, the first act in the drama of the Weir Tiger of Slim, ran in this wise, though I shall not attempt to reproduce the words or the manner in which she told it, brokenly, with shuddering sobs, to her awe-stricken parents. She had gone home with Haji Ali to the house where he dwelt with his 2 sons, Abdul Rahman and Abbas, and all had treated her kindly and with courtesy. The first day she cooked the rice ill, but though the young men grumbled, Haji Ali said never a word of blame when she had expected blows, such as would have fallen to the lot of most wives under similar circumstances. She had no complaint to make of her husband's kindness, but nonetheless she had fled his dwelling, and her parents might hang her on high, sell her in a far land, scorch her with the sun's rays, immerse her in water, burn her with fire, but never again would she return to one who hunted by night as a Weir tiger. Every evening after the Isa, Haji Ali had left the house on one pretext or another, and had not returned until an hour before the dawn. Twice she had not been aware of his return until she found him lying on the sleeping mat by her side. But on the 3rd evening she had remained awake until a noise without told her that her husband was at hand. Then she had hastened to unbar the door, which she had fastened after Abbas and Abdul Rahman had fallen asleep. The moon was behind a cloud, and the light she cast was dim, but Fatima saw clearly enough the sight which had driven her mad with terror. On the topmost rung of the ladder, which in this, as in all Malay houses, led from the ground to the threshold of the door, there rested the head of a full-grown tiger. Fatima could see the bold black stripes which marked his hide, the bristling wires of whisker, the long, cruel teeth, and the fierce green light in the beast's eyes. A round pad, with long curved claws partially concealed, lay on the ladder rung, one on each side of the monster's head, and the lower portion of its body reaching to the ground was so foreshortened that to the girl it looked like the body of a man. Fatima gazed at the tiger, from the distance of only a foot or 2, for she was too paralyzed with fear to move or cry out, and as she looked a gradual transformation took place in the creature at her feet. Slowly, as one sees a ripple of wind pass over the surface of still water, the tiger's features palpitated and were changed, until the horrified girl saw the face of her husband come up through that of the beast, much as the face of a diver comes up to the surface of a pool. In another moment, Fatima saw that it was Haji Ali who was ascending the ladder of his house, and the spell that had hitherto bound her was snapped. The first use she made of her regained power of motion was to leap through the doorway past her husband and to plunge into the jungle which edged the compound. Malays do not love to travel singly through the jungle even when the sun is high, and under ordinary circumstances no woman could by any means be prevailed upon to do such a thing. But Fatima was wild with fear of what she had left behind her, and though she was alone, though the moonlight was dim and the dawn had not yet come, she preferred the dismal depths of the forest to the home of her Weir tiger husband. Thus she pushed her way through the underwood, tearing her garments and her flesh with thorns, catching her feet in creepers and trailing vines, stumbling over unseen logs, and drenching herself to the skin with the dew from the leaves and grasses against which she brushed. A little before daybreak she made her way, as I have described, to her father's house, there to tell the tale of her strange adventure. The story of what had occurred was speedily noised through the villages, and the parents with marriageable daughters, who had been disappointed by Haji Ali's choice of a wife, rejoiced exceedingly, and did not forget to tell Patima's papa and mama that they had always anticipated something of the sort. Haji Ali made no effort to regain possession of his wife, and his neighbors, drawing a natural inference from his actions, avoided him and his sons until they were forced to live in almost complete isolation. But the drama of the were-tiger of Slim was to have a final act. One night, a fine young water buffalo, the property of the headman, Penghulu Mat Saleh, was killed by a tiger, and its owner, saying no word to any man upon the subject, constructed a cunningly arranged spring gun over the carcass. The trigger lines were so set that should the tiger return to finish the meal, which he had begun by tearing a couple of hurried mouthfuls from the rump of his kill, he must infallibly be wounded or slain by the bolts and slugs with which the gun was charged. Next night a loud report, breaking in clanging echoes through the stillness, an hour or two before the dawn was due, apprised Penghulu Mat Saleh that some animal had fouled the trigger lines. In all probability it was the tiger, and if he was wounded he would not be a pleasant creature to meet on a dark night. Accordingly, Penghulu Mat Saleh lay still until morning. In a Malay village, all are astir very shortly after daybreak. As soon as it is light enough to see to walk, the doors of the houses open one by one, and the people of the village come forth singly, huddled to the chin in their sarongs or bed coverlets. Each man makes his way down to the river to perform his morning ablutions, or stands on the bank of the stream, staring sleepily at nothing in particular, a black figure silhouetted against the broad ruddiness of a Malayan dawn. Presently the women of the village come out of the houses, in little knots of 3 or 4, with the children pattering at their heels. They carry clusters of gourds in either hand, for it is their duty to fill them from the running stream with the water which will be needed during the day. It is not until the sun begins to rise, when morning ablutions have been carefully performed, and the first sleepiness of the waking hour has departed from heavy eyes, that the people of the village begin to set about the avocations of the day. Penghulu Mat Saleh arose that morning and performed his usual daily routine before he collected a party of Malays to aid him in his search for the wounded tiger. He had no difficulty in finding men who were willing to share the excitement of the adventure, and presently he set off with a ragged following of near a dozen at his heels, the party having 2 guns and many spears and kreese. They reached the spot where the spring gun had been set, and they found that beyond a doubt the tiger had returned to his kill. The tracks left by the great paths were fresh, and the tearing up of the earth on one side of the dead buffalo, in a spot where the grass was thickly flecked with blood, showed that the shot had taken effect. Penghulu Mat Saleh and his people then set down steadily to follow the trail of the wounded tiger. This was an easy matter, for the beast had gone heavily on 3 legs, the off hind leg dragging uselessly. In places, too, a clot of blood showed red among the dew-drenched leaves and grasses. None the less, the Penghulu and his party followed slowly and with caution. They knew that a wounded tiger is never in a mood in which a child may play with him, and also that, even when he has only 3 legs with which to spring upon his enemies, he can on occasion arrange for a large escort of human beings to accompany him into the land of shadows. The trail led through the brushwood, in which the dead buffalo lay, and thence into a belt of jungle which edged the riverbank a few hundred yards above Penghulu Mat Saleh's village, and extended upstream to Kuala Chin Lama, a distance of half a dozen miles. The tiger turned upstream when this jungle was reached, and half a mile higher up he came out upon a slender wood path. When Penghulu Mat Saleh had followed thus far, he halted and looked at his people. "Know ye whither this track leads, my brothers?" he asked in a whisper. The men nodded, but said never a word. A glance at them would have shown you that they were anxious and uneasy. "What say ye?" continued the Pengulu. "Do we still follow this trail?" "It is as thou wilt, O Pengulu," said the oldest man of the party, answering for his fellows. "We follow thee whithersoever thou goest." "It is well," said the Pengulu. "Come, let us go." No more was said, when this whispered colloquy was ended, and the party set down to the trail again silently and with redoubled caution. The narrow track, which the wounded tiger had followed, led on towards the river bank, and presently the high, wattled bamboo fence of a native compound became visible through the trees. Pengulu Mat Saleh pointed at it. "Behold," was all he said. Then the party moved on again, still following the tracks of the tiger and the flecks of red blood on the grass. These led them to the gate of the compound, and through it to the laman, or open space before the house. Here they were lost at a spot where the rank spear blades of the lalang grass had been beaten down by the falling of some heavy body. A veritable pool of blood marked the place. To it the trail of the limping tiger led. Away from it there were no tracks, save those of the human beings who come and go through the rank growths which cloak the earth in a Malay compound. "Behold," said Pengulu Mat Saleh once more. "Come, let us ascend into the house." And so saying, he led the way up the stair-ladder of the dwelling where Haji Ali lived with his two sons, Abbas and Abdul Rahman, and whence a month or two before Fatima had fled during the night time with a deadly fear in her eyes and the tale of a strange experience faltering on her lips. Pengulu Mat Saleh and his people found Abbas sitting cross-legged in the outer apartment, preparing a quid of betel nut with elaborate care. The visitors squatted on the mats, and the usual customary salutations over, Pengulu Mat Saleh said, "I have come in order that I may see thy father. Is he within the house?" "He is," said Abbas laconically. "Then make known to him that I would have speech with him." "My father is sick," said Abbas in a surly tone, and at the word a tremor of excitement ran through Pengulu Mat Saleh's followers. "What is that patch of blood in the lalang before the house?" asked the Pengulu conversationally, after a short pause. "We slew a goat yesternight," replied Abbas. "Hast thou the skin, O Abbas?" asked the Pengulu, "for I am renewing the faces of my drums, and would fain purchase it." "The skin was mangy, and we cast it into the river," said Abbas. "What ails thy father, Abbas?" asked the Pengulu, returning to the charge. "He is sick," said suddenly a voice from the curtained doorway, which led to the inner apartment. It was the elder son, Abdul Rahman, who spoke. He held a sword in his hand, and his face wore an ugly look as his words came harshly and gratingly with the foreign accent of the Korinchi people. He went on, still standing near the doorway. "He is sick, O Pengulu, and the noise of your words disturbs him. He would slumber and be still. Descend out of the house. He cannot see thee, Pengulu. Listen to these my words." Abdul Rahman's manner, and the words he spoke, were at once so rough and defiant that the Pengulu saw that he must choose between a scuffle, which would mean bloodshed, and a hasty retreat. He was a mild old man, and he drew a monthly salary from the Perak government. Moreover, he knew that the white men who guided the destinies of Perak were averse to bloodshed and homicide, even if the person slain was a wizard or the son of a wizard. Therefore he decided upon retreat. As they clambered down the steps of the door ladder, Mat Tahir, one of the Pengulu's men, plucked him by the sleeve and pointed to a spot beneath the house. Just below the place, in the inner apartment, where Haji Ali might be supposed to lie stretched upon the mat of sickness, the ground was stained a dim red for a space of several inches in circumference. Malay floors are made of laths of wood or of bamboo, laid parallel to one another, with spaces between each one of them. This is convenient, as the whole of the ground beneath the house can thus be used as a slop pail, waste basket, and rubbish heap. The red stain lying where it did had the look of blood. Blood, moreover, from someone within the house, whose wound had very recently been washed and dressed. It might also have been the red juice of the betel nut, but its stains are rarely seen in such large patches. Whatever it may have been, the Pengulu and his people had no opportunity of examining it more closely, for Abdul Rahman and Abbas followed them out of the compound and barred the door against them. Then the Pengulu set off to tell his tale to the district officer, the white man under whose charge the Slim Valley had been placed. He went with many misgivings, for Europeans are skeptical concerning such tales, and when he returned, more or less dissatisfied, some 5 days later, he found that Haji Ali and his sons had disappeared. They had fled downriver on a dark night, without a soul being made aware of their intended departure. They had neither stayed to reap their crops, which now stood ripening in the fields, to sell their house and compound, which had been bought with good money, dollars of the whitest, as the Malay phrase has it, nor yet to collect their debts. This is a fact, and to one who knows the passion for wealth and for property, which is to be found in the breast of every Sumatran Malay, it is perhaps the strangest circumstance of all the weird events which go to make up the drama of the Weir Tiger of Slim. There is, to the European mind, only one possible explanation. Haji Ali and his sons had been the victims of foul play. They had been killed by the simple villagers of Slim, and a cock-and-bull story trumped up to account for their disappearance. This is a very good, and withal a very astute explanation, showing as it does a profound knowledge of human nature, and I should be more than half inclined to accept it as the correct one, but for the fact that Haji Ali and his sons turned up in quite another part of the peninsula some months later. They have nothing out of the way about them to mark them from their fellows, except that Haji Ali goes lame on his right leg.